I never thought my name could be taken from me. Not stolen like a wallet or misplaced like a document, but quietly borrowed, worn, and used until it no longer felt like mine. When you grow up with a brother, you grow up believing some things are
On
unbreakable.
the sole
Blood,
count of felony murder,
loyalty.
the
The idea
jury
that no matter
finds
how
the
messy life
defendant
gets, the
guilty.
person who shared your childhood will never cross a line that can't be uncrossed.
No,
My brother was
it
that line
can't
for me.
be. He wouldn't.
Safety, familiarity. The person who knew my habits, my
I'm sorry,
fears,
my
my
dear.
routines because he lived them beside me. We shared rooms, secrets, and a last name. We shared stories only siblings understand, the kind you carry into adulthood like proof that someone has always known you. So when people talk about trust, I don't think of contracts or promises. I think of him. I think of the way trust is built slowly, over years, without words. That's why nothing felt suspicious at first. Identity to me wasn't a number on a card or a folder in a drawer. It was my reputation, my credit, my future plans. It was the quiet confidence of knowing who I was and where I was going. It was the belief that if something ever went wrong, family would be the first place I could turn. And in my mind, my brother stood at the center of that belief. We helped each other like family does. Small favors, quick signatures, shared addresses during transitions. "I'll handle this for you," he'd say, and I never questioned it. Why would I? Questioning him would have felt like questioning myself, like doubting something fundamental I had never needed to doubt before. There were no warning alarms, no dramatic moments. Life moved forward the way it always had. Bills got paid, mail came and went. Phone calls were ignored because everyone ignores unknown numbers sometimes. I was busy building my life, assuming the foundation beneath me was solid. I didn't know that something was being rearranged quietly, piece by piece, using the one thing I never thought to protect from him: my name. When you trust someone completely, you don't watch your back around them. You don't keep records. You don't double check. You don't imagine they could hurt you in a way that would change how the world sees you. You especially don't imagine they could step into your identity and start living parts of your life without you knowing. Looking back now, that's the hardest part to accept. Not the damage, but the innocence. The way I handed over trust without conditions. The way I assumed love was enough protection. I didn't just trust my brother with information or access. I trusted him with my future, with the version of myself I was still becoming. Family trust is different from any other kind. It's quiet, automatic. It doesn't ask for proof. It's the kind of trust that forms before you're old enough to understand consequences. And once it's there, it feels wrong to question it. It feels like betrayal just to imagine betrayal. So when things felt off, when small inconveniences appeared, I explained them away. Stress, mistakes, life. I never connected them to him, because my mind wouldn't allow it. He was my brother, the same person who knew my childhood fears, who stood next to me in old photos, who shared my last name. That connection made suspicion feel impossible. I didn't realize then that identity theft doesn't always start with malice. Sometimes it starts with access, familiarity, opportunity, and the quiet confidence that the person you're taking from will never suspect you because you're family. The truth is, the deepest pain doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people who know exactly how much they matter to you. The people you trust so completely that you don't notice when they cross boundaries you never imagined they'd touch. I didn't lose my identity in one moment. I lost it slowly, while believing I was safe. At that stage of my life, I still believed something simple and comforting: that family mistakes are accidental, and family loyalty is unconditional. I believed that whatever happened, my brother and I would figure it out together. I believed my name was mine because no one who loved me would ever take it from me. That belief carried me forward right up until the day it collapsed. Because when trust is misplaced, it doesn't just crack, it shatters. And when it does, you don't just question what happened. You question everything that came before it. The first signs didn't arrive like warnings. They came quietly, almost politely. blending into daily life so well that it felt unreasonable to give them any weight. A letter I didn't remember signing up for. A missed call from a number that left no voicemail. A notice that looked official but didn't make sense. Each time, I felt a brief flicker of confusion, and then I brushed it aside. Confusion is easy to ignore when it doesn't come with urgency. And when it involves family, it becomes even easier to explain away. I told myself it was probably a mix-up, a clerical error, a system glitch. Those things happen all the time, right? Especially when you're busy, distracted, trying to stay afloat in your own life. I had deadlines, responsibilities, plans. I didn't have the emotional space to imagine that something deeper was wrong. Bills showed up that didn't match my memory. Amounts I didn't recognize. Accounts I didn't remember opening. But nothing felt dramatic enough to panic over. Just enough to make me uncomfortable. And discomfort is something you learn to live with when you don't want to disrupt peace, especially family peace. When I asked gentle questions, the answers came easily, calmly, casually, the kind of tone that reassures without saying much. It's probably nothing. These companies mess up all the time. I've dealt with stuff like this before. Hearing those words from my brother carried weight. He sounded confident, familiar, safe. And I wanted to believe him, so I did. Phone calls became more frequent. Not urgent, just persistent. Unknown numbers, strange follow-ups. I started hesitating before answering, not because I was scared, but because I didn't want to deal with something confusing again. Each unanswered call felt like a problem postponed, not avoided. I convinced myself that if it were serious, someone would make it clear, but clarity never came. Only more noise. What I didn't realize then was how easily self-doubt can replace suspicion. Instead of questioning the situation, I questioned myself. Maybe I forgot. Maybe I signed something without reading it properly. Maybe I misunderstood. The thought that I could be wrong felt more acceptable than the thought that someone close to me could be involved. There's a strange kind of loyalty in blaming yourself. It protects the people you love from suspicion. It keeps relationships intact. And it keeps you from facing a truth that might be too painful to accept. I started adjusting my behavior to match the confusion. Double-checking things. Keeping mental notes. Trying to be more careful. I didn't accuse anyone. I didn't confront. I didn't even investigate properly. Because doing so would have meant admitting that something wasn't right, and I wasn't ready for that. Family trust has a way of silencing instincts. Red flags don't look red when they're held by someone you've known your whole life. They look like misunderstandings, like bad timing, like something that will sort itself out if you just stay calm and patient. And there was subtle pressure too. Not overt, not aggressive, just enough to make me feel like asking too many questions would make things uncomfortable. Like I'd be overreacting. Like I'd be turning a small issue into something bigger than it needed to be. I didn't want to be that person. The dramatic one. The suspicious one. So I stayed quiet. Every new letter or call chipped away at my sense of certainty, but not enough to force action. I existed in a state of low-level anxiety, telling myself it would pass, that once things settled down, everything would make sense again. That family wouldn't let me down. That's the thing about emotional manipulation, it doesn't have to be loud, it can be soft, reassuring, wrapped in familiarity. It can make you feel silly for even considering that something might be wrong. And the more I ignored those signs, the easier it became to keep ignoring them. Each explanation made the next one simpler. Each delay made action feel less urgent. I didn't see it as avoidance. I saw it as trust. Looking back now, I understand how carefully that trust worked against me. Not because anyone openly pushed me, but because I willingly stepped back. I chose comfort over clarity. I chose belief over evidence. And I chose to protect a relationship that was quietly putting my own life at risk. At that point, I still believed the truth would eventually reveal itself in a harmless way. A simple correction. A resolved mistake. I had no idea that the silence I was maintaining was giving something else room to grow. And while I was busy doubting myself, Something far more serious was unfolding just out of sight, but already too close to ignore. The moment didn't arrive with drama. No raised voices, no flashing lights, just a piece of paper that didn't belong to me and yet, somehow, had my name on it. I remember staring at it longer than I should have, reading the same lines again and again, waiting for them to rearrange themselves into something that made sense. A notice I didn't understand, an account I didn't recognize, language that felt cold, official, final. My hands started shaking before my mind fully caught up. I told myself to breathe, to slow down, to think clearly, but clarity didn't come. Instead, fear crept in quietly, the way it does when something threatens the foundation of your life. Not loud panic, something worse. A heavy, sinking realization that whatever this was, it wasn't small. It wasn't a mistake that could be fixed with a phone call. It was something that had been building without me, using my name as cover. I tried to explain it away one last time. Maybe the system was wrong. Maybe someone else shared my details. Maybe I was misunderstanding the severity. That instinct to soften the truth was still there, fighting to protect what little normalcy I had left. Then the calls changed. They weren't vague anymore. They weren't polite reminders. They were firm, specific. They asked questions I couldn't answer. They referenced decisions I never made, actions I never took, obligations I didn't know existed. Every conversation left me feeling smaller, more exposed, more ashamed. Shame is a strange thing when you've done nothing wrong. It still finds a way in. It makes you lower your voice. It makes you hesitate before asking for help. It makes you feel like you're already guilty just for being involved. I checked my records. Then I checked them again. Late at night. Early in the morning. Hoping to find anything that would explain how my life had drifted so far out of alignment. What I found instead was a version of myself I didn't recognize. A trail of decisions I never made. A financial shadow following me everywhere I turned. That's when the panic finally hit. Not the kind that makes you scream. The kind that makes your chest feel too tight to breathe. The kind that leaves you sitting still, staring at nothing, trying to figure out how you could lose control of something so fundamental without noticing. Your identity isn't just paperwork, it's your credibility, your ability to move forward, your right to be believed. And suddenly, all of that felt compromised. As I kept digging, patterns started to form. Addresses that felt familiar, timelines that overlapped with moments. I remembered clearly times when I had trusted someone else to handle things for me. Details that pointed closer to home without saying so outright. Each connection tightened the knot in my stomach. I didn't want to see it. I wasn't ready. So I moved slowly, carefully, as if approaching a truth that might shatter something permanently. Each new piece of information felt heavier than the last. And with every step, denial became harder to hold on to. When the realization finally surfaced, it didn't feel like anger. It felt like grief. Grief for the version of myself who trusted without fear. Grief for the relationship I had believed in. Grief for the life I thought I was building, now interrupted by consequences I didn't create. The name that kept appearing wasn't announced. It emerged quietly, through details that lined up too well to ignore. Familiar habits. Familiar access. Familiar timing. The closer it got, the harder it became to breathe. Because once you see something like that, you can't unsee it. That was the moment my body gave up before my mind did. I remember sitting down on the floor, back against the wall, feeling the weight of it all press in at once. Fear, confusion, a deep, aching sense of betrayal that hadn't fully taken shape yet but was already breaking something inside me. I felt exposed, unsafe, like my life had been hijacked while I was standing right there. And worse than the fear was the realization that I would have to prove who I was, that my word alone might not be enough, that the version of me I had trusted for so long, my name, my record, my future had been altered without my consent. In that moment, I understood something I never had before. Losing your identity doesn't happen all at once. It happens quietly, until one day you wake up and realize the world no longer sees you the way you see yourself. And standing there, holding evidence of a life I never lived. I knew nothing would ever feel the same again. Walking into the courtroom felt nothing like justice. It felt like punishment. The air was cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. Every sound echoed too loudly: footsteps, papers shifting, quiet coughs that felt intrusive. The room didn't care why I was there. It didn't care about history, or family, or the fact that the person on the other side of this case shared my blood. To the court, this was just another file, another dispute, another name on a docket. But to me, it was everything. I sat there alone, hands folded tighter than I realized, waiting for something, anything, to make this feel less unreal. I kept thinking someone would step in, that someone from my family would sit beside me, say something, even look at me. But no one did. Silence filled every space where support should have been. When my brother entered, I didn't feel anger right away. I felt disbelief. He looked familiar and distant at the same time, like someone I knew well but no longer recognized. Seeing him there made my chest tighten. Not because I wanted to confront him, but because part of me still wished this wasn't necessary. That we could have resolved this without crossing a line that could never be erased. But that line had already been crossed, and now we were here. The courtroom demanded facts, not feelings, dates, documents, proof. But no one prepared me for how heavy it would feel to explain my life to strangers while the person who took it from me sat just a few feet away. Every word I spoke felt exposed, vulnerable, like I was peeling back layers of myself in public. What hurt most wasn't just his presence, it was the absence of everyone else. Family members sat quietly, avoiding eye contact. Some looked at the floor. Some stared straight ahead. Their silence was loud. Louder than any accusation. Louder than any denial. It told me everything I needed to know about where I stood. No one said, "This is wrong." No one said, "We support you." No one said anything at all. There was pressure in that silence. Pressure to stop, to settle, to let it go. Pressure wrapped in phrases like keeping the peace and not tearing the family apart. As if the damage hadn't already been done. As if I was the one creating the problem by refusing to stay quiet. I realized then that this fight was never just legal. It was emotional. Deeply, painfully emotional. I wasn't just defending my name, I was defending my right to exist without shame, my right to be believed, my right to draw a line, even if it cut through blood. Every time my brother's actions were discussed, my stomach twisted. Not because I doubted the truth, but because hearing it out loud made it final, made it undeniable. This wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. This was something deliberate, something that had consequences. And still, no one stepped forward. I felt small in that room. Not because I was wrong, but because standing up for myself meant standing alone. It meant choosing truth over comfort. It meant accepting that justice might cost me my place in the family I thought I belonged to. The court moved on its schedule, indifferent to the emotional wreckage unfolding quietly inside me. Questions were asked. Statements were read. Evidence was reviewed. And through it all, I felt like I was watching my life be dissected without anyone acknowledging how much it hurt. I kept my voice steady. I had to. Because breaking down would have made it easier for people to dismiss me. I learned quickly that pain has to be controlled to be taken seriously. That vulnerability, in a place like that, can be mistaken for weakness. So I held it together. Even when my chest burned. Even when my hands shook. Even when every part of me wanted to ask one simple question: how did it come to this? Looking around that room, I understood something I had avoided for a long time. Justice doesn't always come with comfort. Sometimes it comes with isolation. Sometimes doing the right thing means being misunderstood, judged, or quietly abandoned. And as I sat there, facing my own blood across a legal divide, I felt the full weight of that truth settle in. I wasn't just fighting for my identity anymore. I was fighting for my dignity. Because once you're pushed into silence long enough, speaking up even alone becomes an act of survival. I thought court would give me answers. What it gave me instead was a reckoning. The evidence didn't arrive all at once. It came in fragments, timelines laid side by side, signatures compared, records read aloud with a calmness that felt almost cruel. Each piece alone could have been explained away. Together, they formed something undeniable. Not chaos, not a mistake, a pattern. That's when the room felt smaller. What stunned me wasn't just what was done, it was how carefully. Dates matched moments when I had been distracted. Access lined up with times I had leaned on him. Addresses overlapped with transitions in my life, moments when trust felt natural and asking questions felt unnecessary. This wasn't an impulsive decision. It was a series of choices made quietly, confidently, and repeatedly. I realized then that betrayal doesn't always look like anger or desperation. Sometimes it looks organized. As the evidence unfolded, something inside me shifted. I had been waiting for a single dramatic revelation. One document, one sentence that would explain everything. Instead, I got clarity through accumulation. The truth revealed itself the way water fills a room, slowly, until suddenly there's nowhere left to stand. I didn't feel the urge for revenge. That surprised me. I felt something heavier, steadier, understanding. Understanding that the deepest betrayal isn't loud. It's patient. It relies on proximity, on familiarity, on the assumption that love means access without limits. Seeing the planning laid bare forced me to accept a hard truth. Trust without boundaries isn't kindness. It's vulnerability without protection. What hurt most was recognizing how much of myself I had handed over freely. Not just information belief. I believed family meant shared values. That blood guaranteed care. That loyalty was mutual by default. Court didn't just show me what happened to my identity, it showed me how I had defined family without ever questioning the cost. There was a moment quiet, easily missed when I stopped looking at him and started looking at myself. Not with blame, but with honesty. I saw the places where I had confused closeness with safety, where I had chosen peace over clarity, where I had stayed silent because speaking up felt like a threat to belonging. That realization was painful, but it was also freeing. Because once you see the truth clearly, you're no longer obligated to carry the weight of someone else's choices. You're allowed to draw lines. To say this far, and no further. Not as punishment, as protection. The court reached its conclusions. Papers were filed. Decisions were made. But the most important verdict didn't come from the judge. It came from within me. I decided that my identity would no longer be something others could borrow. That my trust would be intentional, earned, guarded not out of fear, but out of respect for my own life. Family, I learned, isn't defined by shared DNA alone. It's defined by accountability, by care that doesn't require silence, by love that doesn't ask you to shrink to keep the peace. Real family doesn't need access to everything you are. It respects what belongs to you. As I walked out of that courtroom, I didn't feel victorious. I felt awake. I understood that moving forward would require boundaries strong enough to hold, and compassion honest enough to include myself. I understood that healing wouldn't come from forgetting, but from remembering clearly without rewriting the truth to make it easier. And here's the part that stayed with me, the part that changed everything. Reclaiming my identity wasn't about what I proved in court. It was about what I refused to give away again. If you're watching this and you're feeling that familiar, pull the urge to ignore a quiet doubt because it's family pause. Listen to that instinct. Ask the hard questions early. Protect the parts of yourself that matter most. Because sometimes the most important thing you can take back isn't your name on paper. It's your right to define what trust, family, and belonging truly mean. And once you see that clearly, you never look at family the same way again.